What if a homeless black boy risked everything to save a broken millionaire on the verge of ending it all? What happened next not only shocked the world, but changed countless lives forever. You won't believe how one act of courage sparked a movement. The night air in San Francisco cut like a knife, cold and unforgiving. In the heart of the city, where neon lights from towering buildings gleamed like promises too far to reach, the forgotten souls huddled in the shadows, wrapped in layers of despair and worn-out blankets. Among them was Jaden, a 14-year-old boy whose small frame seemed even smaller wrapped in his oversized threadbare coat. His dark skin, peeking out from under a tattered hoodie, blended into the darkness of the alleyways he called home. San Francisco was a city of contradictions. Tourists marveled at the iconic Golden Gate Bridge and the vibrant Fisherman's Wharf, while just blocks away, lives crumbled quietly under the weight of poverty and loss. For Jaden, the streets were both a cage and a battleground, a place where he fought daily to survive. Tonight, his mission was the same as every other night: find enough recyclables to trade for a few dollars. Angela, his mother, needed medicine, and Jaden couldn't go home empty-handed. It wasn't always this way. A year ago, Jaden had a life that, although humble, was warm. Angela used to sing while making dinner, her voice filling their tiny apartment with a joy that seemed unbreakable. But fate had other plans. Angela fell sick, and what started as a persistent cough turned into something more sinister. Hospital bills stacked up like insurmountable towers, and eviction soon followed. They tried shelters, but spaces were scarce. Eventually, the alleys became their refuge. Jaden had learned to be resourceful. He knew which dumpsters were least likely to be guarded, which stores threw away food that wasn't too spoiled, and how to move quietly when rival scavengers appeared. Tonight, though, his luck was running thin. He had managed to gather a few cans, their metallic clink a small comfort, but it wasn't enough, not even close. As he passed through a narrow alley leading to the waterfront, his thoughts weighed heavy. Angela's condition was getting worse, and Jaden couldn't shake the fear that one day he might wake up to find her gone. Pushing the thought aside, he kept moving. His feet ached from walking all day, and hunger gnawed at his stomach. Just as he reached the Golden Gate Bridge, he spotted something strange. A man standing alone by the railing, his silhouette stark against the night sky. Jaden froze, his instincts sharpened by years of caution. The man's posture seemed wrong, too still, too rigid. Curiosity battled with fear as Jaden moved closer, his footsteps muffled by the damp pavement. The man was tall, well-dressed, his suit too clean for this part of town. In the dim glow of a street lamp, Jaden saw the man's face, hollow eyes, tears streaking his cheeks, fingers white from gripping the rail. Something inside Jaden stirred, a primal, unexplainable urge to help. He had seen hopelessness before, felt it often enough, but never like this. He took a deep breath and approached cautiously. "Hey, mister, are you okay?" The man didn't move. His breathing was shallow, almost as if the night itself was pressing down on him. Jaden's heart pounded, fear mixing with determination. "Please," Jaden said, louder this time. "Don't do it." The man slowly turned his head, and Jaden saw something he hadn't expected: recognition. The man's face was vaguely familiar. Then it clicked. Richard Carter, the tech mogul, the millionaire whose face had once been plastered on billboards across the city. What was he doing here, ready to throw it all away? Richard blinked as if seeing Jaden for the first time. His voice was rough, choked with despair. "Leave me alone, kid. You wouldn't understand." Jaden swallowed hard. "Maybe not, but I know what it's like to feel like you've lost everything." Richard scoffed, shaking his head. "What could you possibly know about loss?" Jaden took a step closer, his own pain surfacing in his words. "My mom's dying. We live on the street. I scavenge every night just to keep her fed." I know what it's like to feel powerless. Richard looked at him, confusion etched on his face. Why are you telling me this? Because someone once told me that as long as you're alive, you can still fight. My mom believes it. I try to believe it too. And if I can keep going, so can you. Silence hung between them, heavy and fragile. Richard's grip on the railing loosened, and Jaden dared to reach out, his small hand wrapping around Richard's sleeve. You're not alone, Jaden whispered. Whatever's broken, it can be fixed. Just don't give up. Richard's shoulders shook, his tears spilling freely now. Jaden didn't say anything else, just stood there, holding on. Finally, Richard stepped back from the edge, sinking to the ground as if his legs had given out. Jaden knelt beside him, unsure of what to do next, but knowing one thing for sure. He had saved a life tonight. The city around them remained indifferent, cars speeding past, unaware of the quiet battle that had just been won. Jaden stayed by Richard's side until the man's sobs softened. Eventually, Richard spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. My name is Richard Carter, he admitted, almost ashamed. I know, Jaden replied, but tonight you're just a man who needed help, and I'm glad I was here. As dawn broke, coloring the sky with streaks of pink and gold, Jaden couldn't help but wonder why fate had put him on that bridge at that moment. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The morning sun crept over San Francisco, casting a warm golden hue on the cityscape. As light spilled across the bridge, Richard Carter remained seated on the cold pavement, still processing the events of the night. Next to him, Jaden shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to stay or leave. He couldn't help but feel a pang of worry. Would Richard change his mind? Would he step back toward the railing the moment Jaden left? After a long silence, Richard spoke, his voice still trembling. I don't know why you did it, kid. You don't even know me. Jaden shrugged, glancing at the sunrise. You looked like you needed someone. I couldn't walk away. Richard turned to look at the boy, really seeing him for the first time. The thin jacket, the worn shoes, the exhaustion in his eyes. What's your name? Jaden. Richard hesitated, then asked, Do you have somewhere to go? Jaden glanced down at his shoes, shifting uncomfortably. Yeah, sort of. My mom's waiting for me. She's not well. Something in Richard's chest tightened. He couldn't reconcile the boy's quiet strength with the desperation of his own actions. How had this kid, facing so much hardship, managed to keep going? Why had he, a man with every possible advantage, reached such a breaking point? Standing up slowly, Richard brushed the dust from his expensive trousers and looked down at Jaden. Where do you live? Jaden hesitated. Just around. We've got a tent in one of the alleys near Mission Street. Richard winced inwardly. Mission Street was notorious for its rough conditions. He thought of his penthouse apartment, sleek, modern, soulless, a place that hadn't felt like home for years. Guilt gnawed at him. Come on, he said finally. Let me take you back. I'll make sure your mom's okay. Jaden's eyes narrowed. Why would you do that? Richard looked at him, unflinching. Because I owe you. You saved my life, Jaden. I can't walk away from that. Reluctantly, Jaden nodded. They made their way through the quiet morning streets, Richard keeping pace despite his usual brisk stride. He glanced sideways at Jaden, noting how the boy seemed to instinctively avoid attention, skirting close to walls and lowering his gaze when someone passed by. The city that had once celebrated Richard as a visionary now felt foreign. He saw the neglected corners, the people sleeping on benches, things he had never noticed from his office windows. When they reached the alley, Jaden pushed aside the frayed tarp that served as a makeshift door. Inside, Angela was lying on a thin mattress, her breathing labored. At the sight of Jaden, her face softened with relief. You're late, she murmured. Jaden hurried to her side. I'm sorry, Mom. I found some stuff. And this is Mr. Carter. He helped me. Angela glanced at Richard, confusion and wariness flickering across her face. Sir? Richard knelt down, unbothered by the grime on the ground. Hi, Angela. I'm a friend of Jaden's. He looked out for me last night. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. She tried to sit up, but a fit of coughing left her hunched over, clutching her chest. Jaden rubbed her back, his face tight with worry. Without thinking, Richard pulled out his phone. I'm calling an ambulance. No! Angela's voice, though weak, was firm. No hospitals. We can't afford it. Richard hesitated, caught between respect for her wishes and his instinct to help. You need medical care. You're not well. Jaden glanced at him. We tried before. They just kept giving her pills, but it didn't help. They sent us away when we couldn't pay. Frustration bubbled in Richard's chest. How could a city of such wealth abandon people like this? He took a deep breath. Let me take you somewhere safe. A place where you can rest and where Jaden doesn't have to worry every night. Angela looked at Jaden, unsure. The boy nodded subtly, trusting Richard despite his own reservations. That evening, Richard led them to a small motel on the edge of town. He paid for a week in advance, reassuring Angela that they could stay as long as they needed. When Angela finally settled into bed, Richard pulled Jaden aside. You've been doing this on your own for a long time, he said, more statement than question. Jaden nodded. I'm used to it. Richard's chest tightened again. You shouldn't have to be. Let me help. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I can't just walk away from this. For the first time, Jaden allowed himself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. The motel room offered temporary relief, but Richard knew it wasn't enough. As Angela slowly regained some strength, the reality of their situation sank in. They couldn't stay in that small, stuffy room forever. One evening, as the city lights flickered through the thin curtains, Richard sat down with Jaden and Angela at the small table, their modest dinner spread before them. Richard had been thinking, and now was the time to speak his mind. I've been doing some research, he began. There's a building a few blocks from here in the Mission District. It's not much, a bit run down, but it's structurally sound. I've been thinking of buying it. Angela looked at him cautiously, unsure where he was going with this. Jaden glanced up, curiosity sparking in his eyes. Richard continued, his tone steady but filled with purpose. I want to fix it up. Turn it into a place where people who've been through tough times can find shelter, get meals, and have a chance to rebuild. I want you two to be the first residents. Jaden's mouth opened, but no words came out. Angela furrowed her brow, hesitant. That sounds generous? But why? Richard leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. Because I've been where you are. Not homeless, not sick, but broken. Jaden pulled me back from the edge that night. He made me realize I'd lost sight of what really mattered. If I can help even a few people find their footing, maybe it'll make sense of the mess I made of my own life. Angela wiped a tear from her cheek, overwhelmed. Jaden looked down at his hands, not sure how to process this new possibility. They'd spent so long surviving, the idea of stability felt almost frightening. A few days later, Richard took Jaden to see the building. It was old, with peeling paint and boarded windows, but it had potential. Inside, the air smelled of dust and neglect, but the rooms were spacious, and the courtyard in the back was filled with wild overgrowth. Jaden could already picture people sitting outside, sharing stories, finding comfort. What do you think? Richard asked, watching Jaden's reaction closely. Jaden hesitated, then smiled faintly. It could be good. If we fix it up, make it feel like home. Richard nodded. That's the plan. I've already reached out to some contractors, but I want you to be involved. Your ideas, your vision, this is going to be your place too. Over the next few weeks, the transformation began. Richard invested not just money, but effort. He and Jaden painted walls, hauled out old furniture, and cleared the courtyard of debris. Angela, still recovering but determined to help, sorted donated clothes and organized the small pantry that was forming. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. An old building was being repurposed into a shelter. Some locals were skeptical, muttering about ulterior motives, but others saw the effort firsthand and offered to pitch in. Raul, an older homeless man who often lingered near the local grocery store, approached Jaden one afternoon. "You really doing this, kid?" he asked, his weathered face softening with curiosity. Jaden nodded. "Yeah, we want it to be a place where people don't have to feel alone, somewhere safe." Raoul looked at the building, his eyes narrowing against the sun. "You got heart. Just be careful. People don't always appreciate what they're given." Jaden absorbed the warning, knowing Raoul spoke from experience, but he didn't let the caution dampen his determination. On opening day, they named the center Hope House. Richard made a short speech, his voice steady despite the small crowd. "This isn't just a building, it's a place to start over. No matter how far you've fallen, you deserve a chance to get back up. We're here to help." Jaden, standing beside him, felt a surge of pride. He looked at his mother, who smiled, finally seeing her son find his purpose. The first few weeks were chaotic. People came in waves, some needing shelter, others just looking for a meal or a listening ear. Jaden helped with meals, served soup, and talked with new arrivals. Richard handled the logistics, making sure supplies were in stock and volunteers had guidance. One evening, as Jaden was organizing a small library in the common room, a young girl approached him. She looked around 10, her clothes worn and eyes wary. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice small. "We can stay here?" Jaden nodded, offering a gentle smile. "Yeah, as long as you need." The girl hesitated, then sat in a corner, clutching a stuffed animal. Jaden knew that look. Fear mixed with disbelief. It was the same expression he'd worn when Richard offered him and his mom a safe place. Hope House grew from a shelter to a community. People began sharing their stories, helping each other with small tasks, and forming friendships. Angela started a small garden in the courtyard, teaching the younger kids how to plant seeds. Raoul volunteered to cook some evenings, his gruff demeanor softening as he stirred hearty stews. One night, Richard sat with Jaden on the back steps, listening to the murmur of conversation drifting from the common room. "You did good today," Richard said, patting Jaden's shoulder. Jaden shrugged modestly. "It feels good, helping people. I didn't think it would, but it does." Richard smiled. "That's the secret. Sometimes, giving is what saves us." Jaden nodded, understanding now why Richard felt compelled to help. The pain of loss didn't vanish, but it lessened when you turned it into something meaningful. They sat together, surrounded by the hum of newfound hope, and for the first time in a long while, Jaden knew they were building something worth keeping. The buzz surrounding Hope House spread quickly. At first, it was just the locals who came to see the place. Curious neighbors, old acquaintances of Richard, and even some of Jaden's former classmates. The initial skepticism had started to wear off as more people saw the genuine work being done. Meals were prepared, stories were shared, and for once, those on the margins felt seen and valued. But as Hope House grew in both reputation and impact, the attention it attracted was not always positive. One evening, as Jaden was organizing a donation drive with a few volunteers, Richard received an unexpected visitor. The man introduced himself as Victor Lane, a representative from a major charity organization. His suit was perfectly pressed, his handshake firm. Richard invited him into the small office they had set up in the corner of the building, curious but wary. Victor wasted no time. "We've heard about what you're doing here, Mr. Carter. Very noble. However, we're concerned about the sustainability of your project." Richard's jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" Victor smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. Grassroots efforts like this often fail because they lack professional structure. You're taking in a lot of people. What happens when donations dry up, when volunteers move on? Richard leaned back, his voice steady. We're doing fine. People are helping because they believe in what we're doing. Victor didn't flinch. My organization would like to partner with you. We have experience managing shelters, allocating funds properly. We could take the burden off your shoulders. Richard felt his stomach knot. You want to take over? Victor's smile widened. Think of it as ensuring longevity. We have the resources to keep this place running without you having to manage every detail. Richard's instinct was to refuse outright, but he held back. I'll think about it, he said coolly. After Victor left, Richard found Jaden in the courtyard, helping Angela plant new flowers. He couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that gnawed at him. When he shared the proposal with Jaden and Angela, both listened intently. Why do they want to take over? Jaden asked, wiping dirt from his hands. Richard hesitated. Control, maybe good intentions, maybe just business. They think we can't handle it on our own. Angela glanced at the flowers, then at Richard. Do they know what this place means to people? How it saved us? Richard shook his head. To them, it's just numbers, efficiency. But this isn't about efficiency. It's about people, about giving them a chance to feel human again. As days passed, whispers about the proposal spread among the volunteers. Some worried that rejecting the offer would mean putting Hope House at risk. Others believed that keeping the project independent was worth the struggle. One afternoon, Raoul pulled Jaden aside as they set up beds for new arrivals. You think that suit really wants to help? Raoul asked, his tone skeptical. Jaden shrugged. I don't know. But Richard's done all this without them. Why would we need them now? Raoul grunted in agreement. Don't let them take what you built, kid. This place has soul. You hand it over, and it becomes just another shelter. No heart. The tension escalated when a news story aired, questioning the viability of Hope House. Reporters speculated about whether Richard was using the project as a publicity stunt or an attempt at redemption. Jaden heard the whispers at school too. Kids who once mocked him now threw sneers his way, accusing him of being a charity case. That evening, Richard called for a community meeting. The common room filled with residents, volunteers, and curious neighbors. Jaden sat in the front, anxious but determined to support Richard. Richard stood at the makeshift podium, his voice firm but vulnerable. When we started this, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't walk away from Jaden and his mom. Since then, we've built something beautiful, a place where people aren't judged by their worst moments. Hope House is about giving second chances. He paused, looking at the faces before him. Yes, we've been offered help from a larger organization. They say it will make things easier, but easier isn't always better. We don't need their name or their bureaucracy. What we need is each other. If you believe in that, then let's keep going. Together. Applause broke out, not just polite but heartfelt. Jaden felt his chest swell with pride. For once he saw Richard not as a broken man trying to make amends, but as a leader. The following weeks were tough. Donations fluctuated, and some volunteers left, afraid that Hope House couldn't last without outside backing. But Jaden refused to let it break his spirit. He visited local businesses, shared the story of Hope House, and asked for support. Slowly, the community rallied again. One morning, Jaden found a box of supplies outside the door. A note inside read, "For the place that gave me hope when I had none. A grateful stranger." Richard framed the note, hanging it in the entrance. It was a reminder that impact couldn't always be measured in dollars. One evening, as Jaden and Richard sorted donated clothes, Raoul approached them, holding an old radio. Thought this place could use some music, he grumbled. When the tunes crackled to life, the whole room seemed to breathe easier. People hummed along, some even danced, their spirits momentarily lifted by the simple joy. As night fell, Richard found Jaden sitting alone on the steps, looking at the city lights. "You okay?" he asked. Jaden nodded slowly. "I just keep thinking, what if we can't keep it up?" Richard sat beside him. "You know, I used to think that success was about never failing, but I've learned that it's about not giving up when you do. We'll figure it out, one day at a time." Jaden smiled. "Yeah, we will." The cost of compassion was high. Doubts crept in, mistakes were made, and there were nights when fear threatened to take hold. But every morning brought new faces, new stories, and reminders of why they started in the first place. Hope House wasn't just a shelter, it was a community born from second chances and resilience. It was a place where, despite the challenges, hope persisted. Years passed, and Hope House transformed from a single shelter to a thriving community center that radiated positivity and second chances. The once dilapidated building had become a sanctuary where people could find not just food and shelter, but dignity, purpose, and the will to rebuild. Richard's vision, fueled by Jaden's unwavering spirit, had become something far greater than either of them could have imagined. By now, Jaden had grown from a shy, uncertain boy into a confident young man, standing tall with the same fierce determination that once saved Richard's life on the bridge. His presence at Hope House was constant, guiding, mentoring, and often just listening. He had a way of making people feel seen, no matter how broken they were when they arrived. Angela, now healthier than she had been in years, had taken on the role of coordinating the women's support group. Her soft voice, once marked by frailty, now carried strength as she shared her own journey of survival and recovery. The flowers she and Jaden had planted in the courtyard had bloomed, vibrant and resilient, a fitting symbol of how far they had all come. As Hope House continued to grow, it attracted more media attention, but this time the narrative had changed. News outlets highlighted the success stories: former residents who found jobs, families who secured permanent housing, and youth who went back to school. Jaden had become something of a local hero, not just for his story of survival, but for his commitment to giving back. One afternoon, Richard gathered the team for an announcement. Jaden, Angela, Raul, and a few longtime volunteers sat in the sunlit common room, curious about the news. Richard cleared his throat, his expression both proud and contemplative. "I've been thinking about the future," he began. "Hope House is thriving, but I want it to reach even more people. I've been talking to some partners who believe in what we're doing here. They want to help us open new centers in Oakland, Los Angeles, maybe even beyond." The room buzzed with excitement. Jaden felt a rush of pride, but also a pang of uncertainty. Richard looked directly at him, his eyes softening. "I want you to take the lead, Jaden. You've been the heart of this place. People look up to you. They trust you." Jaden froze. "Me? I don't know if I can." Richard approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You can. I've watched you grow, seen you turn pain into purpose. You've already proven that you can inspire people. It's time." The weight of responsibility pressed down on Jaden, but he looked around at the faces he had come to see as family. Raoul gave him a crooked smile, muttering, "About time you took charge, kid." That night, Jaden couldn't sleep. He sat on the steps outside, staring at the city lights flickering in the distance. Richard joined him, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the air filled with the sounds of distant traffic and occasional laughter from inside. "I never thought I'd be someone people depended on," Jaden admitted, tracing patterns on the mug with his finger. Richard sipped his coffee. "I didn't think I'd find purpose again either. Funny how life works." Jaden looked at him. "What if I mess up? What if I can't do it without you?" Richard smiled. "You're stronger than you know. Mistakes will happen. They always do. But you're not alone. You've built something here that doesn't just rely on one person. It's a community. They'll lift you up when you falter." Jaden thought about that, and the knot in his chest loosened. He realized that leading didn't mean doing it alone. It meant guiding, listening, and letting others help. He glanced at Richard, grateful for the faith the older man had in him. The next day, Jaden addressed the residents and volunteers. He spoke about the journey they had taken, from the darkest of days to the hope they now carried. He promised that even as they expanded, the heart of Hope House would remain unchanged, a place built on compassion, resilience, and second chances. The expansion plans moved forward, with Jaden learning the ropes of leadership from Richard. They established partnerships with local businesses and other community leaders who wanted to support the vision. New centers were opened, each modeled after the original Hope House, but with unique touches inspired by the people who helped build them. Raoul took on a mentorship role, guiding some of the younger boys who had recently arrived. Angela organized weekly storytelling nights, where residents could share their experiences and find comfort in each other's stories. Music, laughter, and the smell of fresh-cooked meals became the soundtrack of Hope House. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the bay, Richard found Jaden in the courtyard, watching the kids play soccer. The young man's face was thoughtful, but there was peace there too. "You did it," Richard said quietly. Jaden turned, a soft smile on his lips. "We did it." And Richard nodded. "You know, I used to think I had to carry my past like a weight, but you taught me that sometimes the best way to honor what we've lost is to build something better." Jaden looked at the vibrant garden, the lively common room, and the people who now had a safe place to dream. He knew the work would never be done, that there would always be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But he also knew that Hope House was more than just a building. It was a legacy, one built not just by him or Richard, but by every person who had walked through its doors. As the evening faded into night, Jaden felt a sense of purpose deeper than anything he had known before. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was leading, healing, and giving others the same chance he had been given. And that, he realized, was worth every struggle they had faced. Together, Jaden and Richard watched the community they had built, their hearts full of gratitude and determination. Hope House wasn't just a refuge from the world's harshness. It was proof that with love, resilience, and a little faith, even the most broken lives could be mended. Hope House had come a long way from being a single makeshift shelter. Now, it was a thriving network of community centers across multiple cities, providing food, shelter, education, and a renewed sense of purpose for those who had fallen through the cracks. Jaden had grown into a leader whose passion and dedication inspired everyone around him. Richard, who once saw himself as just a supporter, had become an advocate for grassroots efforts nationwide. Yet with growth came new challenges. One evening, as Jaden prepared for a meeting with new volunteers, his phone rang. It was Raoul, now managing the original Hope House branch in San Francisco. His voice was strained. "Jaden, we've got a problem. Someone broke into the storage room. They took food supplies and some of the donated laptops." Jaden felt a familiar tightness in his chest. Even after all their progress, there were still setbacks. "Are the residents okay?" "Yeah, just a bit shaken," Raoul replied. "I think it was a group from outside. People saw them running off, but no one got a good look." Jaden assured Raoul that they would figure it out and promised to send support. After ending the call, he sat back, his mind racing with worry. Richard walked into the room, sensing something was off. "We've had a break-in," Jaden explained. "It's not the first time, but I thought we had security measures in place." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes people act out of desperation. We'll get through this. What's important is how we respond." The next day, Jaden and Richard visited the San Francisco Center. They found Raoul and Angela working to reassure residents, making sure everyone felt safe despite the incident. Jaden addressed the group, his voice calm but firm. "We've come too far to let this break us. We'll rebuild what was lost, but we won't let fear control us. This place is built on hope, and no one can take that from us." And Richard worked with local law enforcement to improve security, while Jaden rallied volunteers to replace the stolen items. A local business offered to donate new laptops, moved by the story of resilience. When the media picked up the incident, Jaden used the opportunity to talk about why Hope House existed, not just as a shelter, but as a symbol of rebirth. His message struck a chord, and donations poured in. The experience taught Jaden that success didn't mean an end to challenges. It meant facing them head on, proving that Hope House was more than just four walls. It was a commitment to never giving up, no matter the obstacles. Years passed, and the impact of Hope House stretched beyond what anyone could have imagined. Jaden, now in his late 20s, was no longer just the face of the project, but its heart and soul. Under his guidance, new centers opened in cities like Portland, Denver, and Seattle, each carrying the same mission: to offer second chances. One day, Jaden received a letter from a former resident named Lisa. She had come to Hope House as a frightened teenager, running from an abusive home. The letter spoke of how the safe space had given her the courage to finish school and pursue a career as a social worker. Now, she was helping troubled youth in Chicago. Jaden read the letter aloud during a staff meeting, his voice filled with pride. "This is why we do it," he said, looking around at the dedicated team that had grown with him. Richard, now retired and living in Lake Tahoe, remained involved as an advisor. On a quiet evening, he called Jaden. "You've done more than I ever thought possible," Richard said. "You took an idea and made it into something real." Jaden smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you. You taught me that giving is what saves us. I just tried to pass that on." That fall, Hope House celebrated its 10th anniversary with a community festival. Residents, past and present, came to share their stories. Raoul was there, grumbling about the noise but secretly enjoying the celebration. Angela prepared a feast with the help of some of the newer volunteers. As Jaden looked out over the crowd, he felt a wave of gratitude. When he took the stage to speak, his voice carried both strength and humility. "A decade ago, I didn't know where my next meal would come from. I didn't think I'd have a future, let alone one where I'd be helping others find theirs. We built this place out of struggle and loss, but also out of love and hope. We've faced setbacks, but each one made us stronger. And the most important lesson I've learned is that community isn't just about a place. It's about people standing together, refusing to give up on each other." After the applause, Jaden found a quiet corner and sat down, reflecting on how far they had come. Richard approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done good, kid," he said. Jaden looked at him, a hint of emotion in his eyes. "We did. You gave me a chance when no one else did. That night on the bridge, it changed everything." Richard nodded, his gaze distant. "Sometimes I think about how close I came to giving up. If you hadn't been there," Jaden smiled softly. "But I was. And now, we're here." As the night settled over the city, Jaden knew that their journey wasn't just about survival. It was about transforming pain into purpose, about showing that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always a way forward. Hope House would continue to grow, and its legacy would be one of resilience, compassion, and unwavering faith in humanity. Years continued to pass, and Hope House became a nationwide network, a beacon of light in cities once plagued by hopelessness. Under Jaden's leadership, each new center carried the spirit of the original, a safe space where people could rediscover their dignity and rebuild their lives. The story of how a homeless boy saved a millionaire and, in turn, transformed countless lives had become a symbol of resilience. Jaden's commitment never wavered, even as his responsibilities grew. One evening, while visiting the newest Hope House branch in Chicago, Jaden received an unexpected call from Raoul. His voice was softer than usual, laced with a seriousness that made Jaden's heart race. "Kid, it's Richard. He's not doing too well. You might want to come back." Jaden felt a cold chill spread through his chest. He thanked Raoul and immediately booked a flight back to San Francisco. On the plane, memories flooded his mind. The night on the bridge, Richard's unwavering support, the way he had always been more than just a mentor. Richard had become family. As the plane touched down, Jaden couldn't shake the dread growing inside him. Back at the original Hope House, Jaden found Angela in the common room, her face tight with worry. She took his hands and gave him a reassuring squeeze. "He's upstairs. He's been asking for you." Jaden climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. When he entered Richard's room, he found him sitting in a well-worn armchair by the window, a blanket draped over his knees. Richard's face was thinner, his once commanding presence now more fragile, but his eyes still held that familiar spark. "Hey there," Richard greeted, his voice faint but warm. Jaden forced a smile, moving closer. "Hey, old man, you look, well, not so great." Richard chuckled softly. "Time catches up with all of us." He gestured for Jaden to sit, and they fell into a comfortable silence, watching the city lights blink in the distance. "I knew you'd make it," Richard murmured after a while. "You always show up when it matters." Jaden swallowed the lump in his throat. "You're the one who taught me that. You never gave up on me." Richard's eyes softened. "You gave me a reason not to. You know, I used to think I'd be remembered for my company, my wealth, but this, what we've built, this is what matters." Jaden couldn't hold back the tears anymore. "I don't know if I can do this without you." Richard reached out, his hand shaking, and squeezed Jaden's shoulder. "You already are. Hope House doesn't belong to me, or even to you. It belongs to everyone who walks through those doors and finds a reason to keep going. You're more than ready, Jaden." They spent hours talking, reflecting on the years of challenges and triumphs. Richard shared stories from his youth that he had never spoken of before, mistakes, regrets, the loneliness that had once consumed him. Jaden listened intently, realizing that even now Richard was still teaching him about life. A few days later, Richard passed away peacefully, surrounded by the people he had come to see as family. The news hit the community hard. Hope House held a memorial, and people from all over the country came to pay their respects. Jaden stood at the front, holding back his own grief as he addressed the crowd. Richard Carter wasn't just a founder of Hope House. He was a man who learned how to turn his pain into something beautiful. He gave me, and so many others, a chance to believe in ourselves. His legacy isn't just in the buildings or the programs, it's in every life he touched. And we will carry that forward. As the crowd dispersed, Jaden remained behind, staring at the plaque dedicated to Richard at the entrance. Raoul approached, placing a hand on Jaden's back. "You know, kid, he would have been damn proud of you." Jaden nodded, wiping his eyes. "I just want to make sure I honor him right." Raoul gave him a rare, gentle smile. "You've already done that. You've made this place more than just a shelter. You've made it a home." In the weeks that followed, Jaden found solace in his work, channeling his grief into new projects and initiatives. Angela took over coordinating the mentorship program, guiding young leaders to carry on the vision. The San Francisco branch became a training hub for those looking to start similar initiatives, ensuring that Richard's dream would continue to grow. One evening, as Jaden locked up the main office, he noticed a young boy sitting on the steps, clutching a worn backpack. His clothes were dirty, and his eyes held the familiar blend of fear and uncertainty. Jaden approached slowly, remembering his own past. "Hey," Jaden said gently, "you okay?" The boy glanced up, hesitating before nodding. "Just looking for somewhere to stay." Jaden sat down beside him. "You found the right place. Come on, let's get you inside." As they walked through the doors, Jaden felt a sense of peace. He knew that this was what Richard had meant, that Hope House wasn't just a legacy. It was a living promise to keep showing up, to keep fighting for those who had been forgotten. Jaden knew there would always be more work to do, but he also knew he wouldn't be doing it alone. Hope House would continue, not just because of the buildings or the programs, but because of the people who believed in it. And as long as there was someone who needed a second chance, Jaden would be there, just as Richard had been there for him. As the years continued to pass, Jaden's commitment to Hope House remained unwavering. He had grown into a resilient, compassionate leader, carrying forward the legacy that Richard had entrusted to him. Under Jaden's guidance, the network of Hope House centers flourished, spreading to new cities and helping more people than they ever imagined. One autumn afternoon, Jaden found himself back at the original Hope House in San Francisco. The courtyard was alive with children playing, volunteers sorting through donated supplies, and the familiar hum of community activity. He couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia, remembering the early days when the space had been little more than a rundown building. Now it was thriving, and it made Jaden proud to see how far they had come. Angela, still energetic and actively involved despite her age, approached Jaden with a smile. "There's someone here to see you," she said, leading him to the common room. Jaden was surprised to see a familiar face. Lisa, one of the earliest residents of Hope House, now a social worker in Chicago. She had brought along a group of teens who were visiting from the new center. Lisa greeted him warmly. "I wanted them to see where it all started," she explained. "You always told me that remembering where you came from keeps you grounded." Jaden chuckled, realizing how his words had stayed with her. The teens looked around curiously, impressed by the history and the stories Lisa shared. Jaden took the time to speak with each of them, listening to their stories and encouraging them to keep pushing forward. Seeing their youthful enthusiasm reminded him of his own journey, the uncertainty, the fear, but also the unyielding hope that had driven him to keep going. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jaden gathered the visitors in the courtyard. He shared his story, not as a leader, but as someone who had once been just like them, scared, homeless, and unsure of what the future held. He talked about the night he met Richard, how that single encounter had changed his life, and how building Hope House had given him purpose. "Sometimes, life gives you moments that can break you or build you," he said. "You have to choose which one it's going to be. This place, these people, they chose to build, and that's why Hope House exists." Afterward, Lisa approached him, her eyes bright with gratitude. "You don't realize how much you've done for people," she said. "Seeing you speak like that, it reminded me of how you never gave up on me when I was lost." Jaden looked at her, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "You were never lost, Lisa. You just needed someone to remind you of your strength." As the group prepared to head back to Chicago, one of the teens, a boy named Malik, hesitated before speaking to Jaden. "How do you keep going when things get really bad?" Malik asked, his voice tinged with doubt. Jaden thought for a moment before answering. "You find one reason. Just one. For me, it was my mom. Then it became this place. Then the people who needed help. You hold on to that reason, and you let it pull you through the darkness." The boy nodded, seemingly comforted by the simplicity and truth of Jaden's answer. That night, Jaden sat on the rooftop, looking out over the city. He thought of Richard, of how one man's despair had been transformed into a legacy of hope. Jaden knew that while the challenges would never truly go away, neither would the community they had built. Hope House had become more than just a shelter. It was a symbol of redemption, compassion, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to be forgotten. A week later, Jaden received a letter from the mayor's office. To his surprise, it was an invitation to an award ceremony. The city wanted to honor him for his contributions to the community and his dedication to helping the homeless population. Jaden felt a mix of pride and humility. He hadn't done any of this for recognition. His drive had always been to ensure that no one else had to feel as lost as he once did. On the day of the ceremony, Raoul teased him about wearing a suit. Angela fussed over his tie, insisting it look crooked. As Jaden walked on to the stage to accept the award, he felt a wave of emotion, but his speech was simple. "This isn't just about me," he began. "It's about everyone who believed in a second chance. Hope House exists because people didn't give up on each other. Richard taught me that giving isn't just an act, it's a way of life. We all have the power to change someone's world just by showing up. This honor belongs to everyone who refused to walk away when things got hard." The audience erupted in applause, and Jaden saw familiar faces cheering him on: residents, volunteers, and even some of the teens from Chicago. As he stepped off the stage, a sense of peace washed over him. He had honored Richard's legacy by living it every day and by teaching others to do the same. That night, Jaden returned to Hope House, where Raoul had set up a small party to celebrate. As they laughed and shared stories, Jaden knew that their work was far from over. There would always be new challenges, new lives to help rebuild, but they were ready. Hope House wasn't just about shelter, it was about proving that no matter how dark the night, there was always light to be found. Jaden stood by the mural they had painted years ago, a depiction of a bridge arching over turbulent waters. Below it, Richard's words were inscribed, "Sometimes giving is what saves us." Jaden touched the mural gently, whispering a quiet promise to keep carrying the flame. The story that began with a desperate boy and a broken millionaire had grown into something neither of them could have imagined: a community built on compassion and strength, where the legacy of hope would continue to guide those in need. Reflecting on the journey that began on the streets of San Francisco, it's almost unimaginable how far Jaden and Richard have come. The story of how a homeless black boy saved a millionaire from the brink of despair, only to find his own life transformed in return, is more than just an inspiring narrative. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound change starts with a single act of courage. Jaden was just a boy, burdened with responsibilities far beyond his years, scavenging the city streets to support his sick mother. On that fateful night, his path intersected with Richard Carter's, a man of immense wealth but empty of hope. It would have been easy for Jaden to walk away, but he chose to intervene, driven by empathy and an innate understanding of pain. That decision, simple yet monumental, set off a ripple effect that changed countless lives. What followed was not just a story of recovery, but of rediscovery. For Richard, being saved by a boy who had every reason to be bitter was a wake-up call. He saw himself through Jaden's eyes, a man who had lost touch with what truly mattered. Instead of giving up, he embraced the chance to make amends, not only to Jaden, but to himself. That decision to build Hope House was not just about providing shelter. It was about building a community where people could find strength, purpose, and a second chance. Hope House became more than just a place to sleep. It was a home, a family, and a symbol that one act of kindness could ignite a movement. As Jaden grew, he not only embraced leadership, but also carried forward Richard's legacy, never forgetting how a single night on a bridge had reshaped his destiny. The community that formed around Hope House was born from the struggles of its founders, but flourished because of their unwavering commitment. The challenges they faced were real and relentless. From break-ins and skepticism to public doubt about their intentions, Jaden and Richard were tested repeatedly. Yet each challenge only served to strengthen their resolve. When organizations questioned their sustainability, Jaden didn't just defend Hope House, he expanded it. When volunteers grew weary, he inspired them to keep pushing. The growth of Hope House into a national network was proof that their vision wasn't just viable, it was vital. The story took a somber turn when Richard's health began to decline. His passing was a moment of deep loss, not just for Jaden, but for everyone whose lives he had touched. Yet, in his final days, Richard knew that his mission was in good hands. Jaden's unwavering spirit was proof that the torch had been passed. And as Hope House continued to expand, Richard's legacy lived on, not just in brick and mortar, but in every life that found hope within its walls. Reflecting on the entirety of this journey, one message shines brighter than any other. The power of compassion can reshape destinies. Jaden's courage to reach out to a stranger saved a life. Richard's willingness to give back to the community gave hope to hundreds. And the ripple effect of their partnership inspired a movement that would outlive them both. In today's world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by challenges and weighed down by personal struggles. It's tempting to believe that one person can't make a difference. But Jaden's story shows us that change doesn't start with grand gestures. It starts with showing up. It starts with choosing to care. When faced with adversity, it's not about giving up or giving in. It's about finding a way to fight, even when the odds seem insurmountable. We learn from Jaden and Richard that no one is too broken to be saved, and no problem is too big when people come together. Hope House wasn't built just from donations or plans. It was built from resilience, understanding, and a collective belief that no one should be forgotten. Their journey reminds us that sometimes it's the most unlikely connections that can change the world. In our own lives, we can take a piece of Jaden's spirit and Richard's determination. Whether it's reaching out to someone who's struggling, offering a helping hand, or simply refusing to give up on ourselves, we can be part of that same legacy of hope. Each small action, each act of kindness has the potential to grow into something far greater than we can imagine. As we continue to share stories like this, we keep the spirit of Hope House alive. Jaden's story doesn't end here, nor does Richard's legacy. They serve as a reminder that with compassion, courage, and the willingness to take risks for others, we can overcome the darkest moments. We can build communities that uplift and protect the most vulnerable among us. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. If Jaden's story has touched your heart or inspired you to think differently about how you can make a difference, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to share powerful, real-life stories that remind us of the strength of the human spirit. Together, we can create more content that not only entertains but also uplifts and inspires. Hit the subscribe button, leave a comment about what moved you most, and let's keep spreading hope, one story at a time.